What's up, YouTube? This is Elijah here, coming at you with another video from the applifestyle.org, your one-stop shop for all things rideshare and delivery life. And this will be the first part of the Advanced Ubereats course. In this part, we're going to cover stack trips and back trips. Now, a lot of y'all may know what this is, but y'all don't exactly know what I'm talking about because I haven't really given it a name until now. And it's something I didn't cover in the original Ubereats course because when you look at it, it might be just a little too sophisticated, but here is the perfect place for it. So just like the previous course, you see me looking down here, it's because these are my notes, okay? So, now starting it off, what is a stack trip? Now, a stack trip, I'm sure you've encountered this scenario where you're on your way to the restaurant, right? You've already accepted a request, but you get another request on the way there. Most people just go ahead and take it, but you know, in some scenarios, that might not be the best thing. So a stack trip is a trip that comes, you know, when you already have a trip. So it results in you getting a double order. So you get an order for Sue and Johnny. What that entails is you go pick both orders up. Then once you drop the order off to the first one, then you go straight to the next one and drop it off too. Now they have, you know, pros and cons. We're gonna look at the pros. Now, obviously, you make more money because you're getting paid the another pickup fee, and you can get straight to your next delivery. Now, that's the pro. Now, the con, and I'm just talking about financial right now. The con is, as you can probably see from the screenshots, you don't make that much. So, in addition, so you kind of gotta weigh, is it appropriate to actually take it or not? Because here's the important thing. I'm sure we've all had this encounter. You take a stack trip, and the first one doesn't go far. The first one is kind of what you want, but the second one is kind of a pain in the ass. A good example is, take the first one. It's around the corner. It's very simple, and let's say it's a house. But the second one, let's say it's across town, you would have preferred to stay in the area, but it takes you across town, and it's in a 30-story apartment. If you hadn't taken the second one, then you wouldn't be put in that predicament. So how do you determine if it's best given the situation? Well, it really depends on the time of day and your strategy, okay? Now, if you're looking to stay in your immediate vicinity, during certain times of the day, you may not want to take stack trips. Because if you take a stack trip, it's increasing the chance that you get taken out of that area. You're trying to stay in the area, you know, that could be problematic. I didn't mention this in the cons, but there's always the higher chance that you will wait longer too. So the first order may be ready, but the second order, hey, you know what, it's not ready, just take a seat, whatever, that's what the restaurant says. Now, me personally, if it's not ready when I get there, if I wait, depends on the restaurant. I have restaurants where I'll wait for because, you know, they're usually on their stuff. But if they're not on their stuff, I'll just go ahead and cancel that stacked order, the second one, and move on with my first one. You got to be able to make that call because if you don't, it will literally cost you money, okay? So, scenario one, let's say it's during rush hour and I want to stay in the immediate vicinity around me, okay? In the next video, I'll teach y'all how to identify certain trips, but we'll get into that in the next video. But for the sake of this video, I want short trips, okay? Because I want to stay in my immediate vicinity. I get an option to take a stacked order, and it's during rush hour between like 4:30 and 6. The restaurant in question, well, sometimes they got their stuff together, sometimes they don't, but for whatever reason, at dinner time, they get their butts kicked. Am I going to take the stacked order? Chances are probably not, because I'll end up canceling it. Sometimes I may treat it like the lottery and go ahead and hit it. If they both happen to be ready, maybe I'll take it. But even then, remember the chance that it can take me somewhere else that I don't want to go? It may not be worth it in that particular situation. But let's talk about the situation where it might be worth it. Let's say you have a quest, an extra $9 every 3 deliveries you do. Stacked orders count towards those quests. So you picked up this double order and you're going to get 2 orders towards that quest. I would say it's definitely worth it then. Even then, though, you still want to evaluate the time in the restaurant, but for the most part, that's going to kind of make up for it. So you got to filter out if it's really a good idea to do it or not. Because I'm going to be honest, stack trips are very overrated in the Uber Eats community. Oh, that's the extra money, take it. But like you saw in the screenshot, it's really not that much more money. And it will keep your hands tied longer. Keep that in mind. Usually it amounts to an extra $2, maybe $3. Now that can be the difference between like $15 and $18 an hour if you know how to play your cards right. But is it worth it? If you're confident you can get another trip within that hour, that's something to consider. If you're confident you can't, maybe you should pass. And always be keeping an eye on how much time is within that hour, because that's what helps you stay within that $11 to $18 range. So that does it for stack trips. Moving on, we're going to go to back-to-back trips. Now, back-to-back trips, they can be very useful in a few different ways. Now, in the previous app, back-to-back trips had their biggest drawback because you couldn't see where the restaurant is. You were just kind of taking a gamble. If you didn't like it, just cancel afterwards. This time around with this new app, you actually don't have to do that.
In 1.4 miles, turn right on Church Road.
So as you saw from that brief little screen video, you can actually see the restaurant. If you do what I said in the tutorial, you can see the restaurant before you even take it. Now, not literally, you zoom out of the map and zoom in, and if you know your area, you'll know what restaurant that is. So with that being said, it brings a whole new dynamic to it. If you can kind of pick where you're going, not pick, but be aware of where you're going, that's obviously a plus, right? Plus, when we're talking about scenarios of activity, which we will get to in a later part, but there's a scenario where Uber is getting their butt kicked and they're sending you all kinds of crap all over the map every 2 seconds. One thing about these back-to-back trips, the algorithm is set so that it's not going to send you something like over 3 miles away. So if Uber is in that type of activity, then guess what? You can use this back-to-back trip kind of as a filter. So when it acts as a filter, hey, guess what? Only certain trips are going to be coming your way, so you don't have to cycle through all that mess to get the desired request that you want. So back-to-back trips definitely have their pros there. But one thing about a back-to-back trip, since you can't exactly see where you're going, if you're not immediately familiar with your area yet, you might be taking a gamble, especially if it takes you somewhere that you don't care to be. Then you take another request, and let's say that restaurant keeps you within that area that you don't want to be. You see how maybe you just want to go ahead and pass, especially if you know you're going to a place that you don't want to be. By place, I mean area of the city. I mean, swinging back to that customer app, you can kind of tell the time guarantees that we already covered in the previous course, so I'm not going to cover it again here. But it kind of gives you a heads up as far as, okay, do I want to stay here? Do I not want to stay here? And if you look at restaurants with short time guarantees, then you'll definitely want to pass because it's just going to keep you in that area. But with that being said, the biggest advantage of back-to-back trips is really that algorithm when Uber is getting overwhelmed. Then it kind of acts as a filter for you so you don't have to really do much. So that covers back-to-back and stack trips. Real quickly, I'll briefly cover the customer app, which I already covered in part 3 of the normal Uber Eats course. But one detail that was left out that I guess is kind of crucial, think about the customer app. In order to get the accurate data, the moment you get a request, I have my customer app on right next to it. I triangulate the place where I got the request at, then that gives you 100% accuracy as far as the type of trip you're going to get. Now, you can set these places automatically to your hotspots, and that works too. But generally speaking, that's a good way to get started. So that covers it for part 1 of the Ubereats Advanced course. Be sure to stay tuned for part 2, where we'll be covering hot streets and different trip types. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below. And like always, be sure to go to the applifestyle.org for additional details and check out the content there. If you like this video, a like, share, and subscribe is greatly appreciated, and it'll help your fellow Uber Eats driver out. This is Elijah. Until the next time. Peace out.